Wednesday evening, January 10th, 2024.
You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. And it is certainly with great difficulty to observe the weather map and the winter storm, the major winter storm that happened yesterday and the upcoming winter storm. The great difficulty is just for us Chicagoans, but the rest of the country, it's just a lot of excitement, really an enormous amount of excitement, both from yesterday. 15 inches fell in parts of Iowa, at least 7, 8, 9 inches parts of Illinois, and the storm was still going at that time. We have to take a look and see what the final snow amounts are, which perhaps we'll get to do that at some point, but in many of the places, state of Kansas, 14 point some inches. We have places out there. Missouri got a lot of snow. There really was a lot of snow across the Midwest, but Lake Michigan, along with a slightly northwestward storm track, but Lake Michigan played a major role in watering down those snow totals. In fact, the storm fell as primarily rain here in the Chicago area. If you were on the lake, that's how it fell. If you were just a little bit away from the lake, even in the southern areas, there was snow, there was slush, but there was some type of snowfall that fell really Monday night, and then it melted by Tuesday morning. So here in the Chicago region, we have something very unusual. We're holding right now in mid-January. If it was any other year, just about any other year, perhaps not even just about, winds off of the lake by a snowstorm bring lake enhancement. It enhances the snow totals. Good examples of this all over the place. Good example, February 14th, 2021, snow totals by the lake 18 inches. O'Hare Airport about 10 inches. You see by the lake the snow totals are much higher. But when you get into the month of November, so then, such as in the year 2015, the very end of November, O'Hare Airport officially saw 11 point some inches, a record-breaking snowstorm. But by the lake, there was basically nothing, about an inch or so. Well, we're mid-January. The lake water temperatures are pretty high. We didn't have an Arctic air mass either, but as we're going to see soon, that may not have even been such a variable for the first half of the storm. The lake still may have changed that precipitation over to rain for at least the first half, even if we would have had an Arctic air mass. And we're going to have to deal with that for the upcoming storm on Friday. 48 hours ago, meteorologist Tom Skilling, who's been forecasting weather for at least 40 years here in the Chicago area, he's considered a top expert. He said he doesn't think that he ever has seen such an active winter weather pattern in the Chicago area. This is for the upcoming week. He doesn't remember ever seeing something like this. And we're talking about, he went through all the 1970s, the winters of the 1960s, and just storm after storm after storm. The issue is, the Chicagoans, we missed it. We really did. They think there's really basically no snow on the ground at all here in the Chicago area. When you go over into the western suburbs, they have significant snow on the ground, but nothing here in the Chicago area. Precipitation fell as rain. And this is another thing we're going to have to deal with on Friday. The similar situation, and that leaves a big question mark for the first half of the storm. But a blizzard is more likely to set up for the second half of the storm. And that brings us to the next variable over here, which is the wind. We're just going to speak about the wind for a little bit. The synoptic weather setup, as we spoke about in the previous episode, was really right on. Much of this country had blizzard warnings. At least you go into the Texas Panhandle, parts of Oklahoma, blizzard warnings. And even if you weren't under a blizzard warning, there were really strong winds. The reason for that is because this was a strong storm system, which was rapidly intensifying. So those isobars become very close together. Nature has a way of wanting to balance itself out. So that produces tremendous movement of the air. So the thing is, here in Chicago, not only did we not have wind around midday, it looked almost like the winds were 0 miles per hour. So the reason for that is because the storm's center came very close to the Chicago area. And just like in a hurricane, when you have the eye of the hurricane, there's really nothing going on. So it's not quite like that in storm systems over land, but there is a similarity. The strongest winds are not near the center of the storm. The strongest winds are further out. So the Chicago area went a period of time where there was very, very little wind. Eventually, the winds did pick up by the evening and gusty, especially by the lake. We have another snow system coming in for tonight. This snow system is expected to bring about 1 inch of snow for areas north of Interstate 80, tells us the National Weather Service. But let's skip over to Friday's storm, and then we're going to speak about what's going to be happening next week as well. Friday's storm, 1 to 4 feet of snow is what happened in the Rockies yesterday. This is the Cascades. We have to point out the Cascades, Washington and Oregon. There were blizzard warnings in effect, and the National Weather Service said it's a rarity. We had a point yesterday where there were 40-some different types of advisories and warnings in effect from the National Weather Service. Very intense stuff. The highest I've ever seen was 39, but yesterday 40. Right now there's 38 different types of advisories and warnings. That's a lot of advisories and warnings. We do have a blizzard warning in effect for portions in the Anchorage, Alaska area. We also have some places out in the west where we also have a blizzard warning. So it isn't common to have a blizzard warning in the Cascades. I didn't know that. I learned that yesterday because the National Weather Service said it's something that doesn't usually happen. So that storm system with the 1 to 4 feet of snow, that's the storm that then moves over the Rockies, through the Rockies, and it redevelops Thursday night into Friday into a rapidly intensifying storm system, stronger than what we had the other day. This is going to be, as it passes Chicago, 28.9, going into a 28.7, 28. It's a very, very strong storm system, and this one has a brutal Arctic air mass on the backside. With that being said, we still have a variable which just creates the situation as really I don't know what's going to happen during the first part of the storm. Winds are east. Usually by a snowstorm, the winds are from the northeast. Not that it's really going to make much of a difference, but strong winds out of the east on Friday. National Weather Service is telling us this time that will eat into snow totals. That's what they think on Friday. Not lake enhancement, but actually the warm lake water temperatures will actually prevent some of that snow from accumulating and could even cause the snow to mix in with rain. Some even say there might be no accumulation at all on Friday until you get to Friday evening. The second half of the storm, there's not going to be really a period where there's no precipitation. It's just going to go head on. The winds shift. They become northwest. Snow, heavy snow. The National Weather Service says a 20 to 30% chance for a true blizzard, 3 consecutive hours of blizzard conditions of 35 mile per hour wind gusts, and realize those chances are pretty significant this far in advance. We have a winter storm watch in effect for much of this country, including the Chicago area, Friday morning through Friday night. The winds are really going to pick up. They say we're in for life-threatening driving conditions. The situation will be life-threatening Friday night across the board. So even if, let's say this would be a 12-inch storm, so the first 6 inches don't fall in the Chicago area because of the lake, so the last 6 inches would still fall. They think 8 to 12 inches, something like that. We'll have to see as we get closer, we'll hear more of the details. About a half an inch of QPF is what's expected. Areas south of Interstate 80 might be getting rain on Friday. North of Interstate 80, we get the snow. Now, what's the definition of near the lake? The National Weather Service tells us if you live east of Interstate 94, so then you're considered near the lake. That's going to eat into the snow totals. So Skokie is actually west of Interstate 94, but it's just to the west. It's almost like along Interstate 94, so we'll have to see what's going to happen over there. But places like West Rogers Park, according to the National Weather Service forecast, as of right now, the snow totals are going to get eaten into on Friday, but not Friday night. Following this, we have an extremely cold Arctic air mass that's coming into the region. It's going to bottom out on Sunday. Temperatures below zero at night, wind chills to 20 below zero. In Missouri, wind chills to 30 below zero. And another wave of snow moves through Sunday afternoon into Sunday night, but not for Chicago. This is really going to affect St. Louis, but even more so places in the Tennessee Valley, perhaps even portions of northern Arkansas. It's really a southern system, and it doesn't look so significant, but it's something to keep an eye on because it does look like it will be colliding with some type of Gulf moisture. Now, let's go ahead and talk about something which could be exciting for people who live in the mid-Atlantic area. But it's important to point out that the National Weather Service is not making a big deal about this yet, perhaps because the GFS model, which is the National Weather Service model, is not really forecasting anything too significant for Baltimore, Maryland. It's forecasting an inch, something like that, somewhere between Tuesday into Wednesday. But the European computer model shows a solid 6-inch snowstorm for Baltimore Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday night. It also shows an intensifying area of low pressure off the mid-Atlantic coast, which then intensifies as it continues to move north and northeast. The significance over here is that the Baltimore area has seen about 700 consecutive days without getting an inch of snow. 700 consecutive days. You have to go all the way back to 2022, maybe even 700, maybe even 2021. I don't know how far back. They're in the midst of a snow drought right now. And although there has been snow recorded in portions of the Baltimore area, we even did an episode on that. Apparently much of Baltimore has not seen snow, including the official reporting station. So, and this is true for other areas as well on the East Coast. So this would have a lot of significance if this snow does materialize, what the European computer model is forecasting to happen for Baltimore. Again, though, the National Weather Service has made basically no mention of it other than a wave of low pressure may bring a wintry mix to the mid-Atlantic area for the middle parts of next week, the early to middle parts of next week. You want to get full accuracy on the wording, you can look it up yourself. The National Weather Service, Baltimore, Maryland, they're actually the center. The Washington, D.C. and the Maryland area is actually the headquarters of the National Weather Service in the country. But this is something to keep an eye on for next week if you do live out there. And it could be exciting for other people as well. That should be the same system that will be affecting portions of the Tennessee Valley. Now, here's some other things to think about. Storm warnings go into effect here on Lake Michigan, here in the Chicago area. 16 to 20 foot waves with 50 mile per hour wind knots. Winds to 50 knots. Winds to 50, very strong winds. These are storm winds, storm force winds. We also should point out that yesterday evening we had a hurricane force storm wind gust warning in effect for parts of this country. There's so much more to say, and maybe we'll, when we have more information, perhaps we'll be able to give an update. But this is what we have for right now, and I hope everyone enjoys, stay safe, and have fun. Have a wonderful night, wonderful day tomorrow, wonderful weekend, and enjoy the snow. And those of you that like Arctic air, you could enjoy it. It's really going to be intense. Have a great night.
You've been listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. This podcast can be found on almost every platform where podcasts are available.
The following is a weather trailer. We have two things going on. We have evaporative cooling and we also have dynamic cooling, and the two are coming together to produce a major snowstorm in the deep south. The only time you could blame cold air on climate change is when it's a result of the stratosphere warming, which is what causes all the Arctic air to come down south. The way to get a 6-inch snowstorm here in the Midwest and in the Southern Plains has always been you need 3 ingredients. It's hard to believe the numbers that are being forecasted.
Several additional feet of snow is expected by Monday morning.
Hey, we have a special guest on our show. What is your name?
Katabis.
27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan.
Oh my God.
That's a time of celebration.
Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.